Hi everyone, and welcome to the Grindset. It is Keith, Dylan, Franks the third, and myself, Hannah Wood Morgan. And we're going to be talking about all things from the tabletop game industry.
Yeah, board games, board game industry, board game industry tea.
Yeah, all of our opinions from having done a variety of different things. Yeah, do you want to go through a little bit of what you've done and where you've come from?
Yeah, I can kick it off. A few years ago now, I was working in a factory and I quit my job to take my first game to Kickstarter, which, as you know, everyone is a fantastic career move for everyone involved. And Castles of Kalira funded 450% on Kickstarter. And then since then, I pretty much have been doing this full time. With a 50% hit rate, I realized recently. Some advice that I got early on from James Math, he was like, dude, don't worry about it. Even when I was starting out, I had a 1 in 3 hit rate. And I was like, oh, that makes me feel so much better. And I look back at it now and I've got of just like funding or not funding or stuff that just gets dropped after doing all the production. And I look back and I go, okay, I had one game that's broken even with my first game. My second one, that was a huge bomb. The next one that's approaching even, like due for a bomb, and then I'm totally fine, all right? So that's not bad. I'm pretty happy with that. Yeah.
Okay.
So
a hybrid.
Yeah, but I don't know. Weirdly, I'm more well known for Winning Love by Daylight, a visual novel that I made about. It's like a modern interpretation of Sailor Moon. Even though board games is the thing I want to be known for. And that kind of brings us to this. I wanted to create a podcast with my bestie Hannah, who's just over here to my left, and talk about some stuff about already.
There we go.
Talk stuff about underrepresented people in the board games industry and who we are and what we've done to get to here. So while I'm gassing you up, why don't you give us your quick backstory? How did you become a villain?
So I started out by wanting to be a writer, actually, but I'm sort of awful at picking what characters can do in the worlds that I build. I'm pretty good at world building. And so my wife at the time was like, why don't you try making a board game? Because the story is not that great. And I did, and it went pretty well. And so I just kept going from there. And I've successfully launched about 14 crowdfunding campaigns through a variety of little businesses and organizations and stuff. I also do client work where I create tabletop games for universities and private clients that tend to be like in the health and mental health space. I'm still making games under Guildmaster Games and trying to help mentor people to be able to make their own game. I've had a lot of things not go, stupendously. So I've had failed Kickstarters. I've had prior company have to shut down. I've had, but overall, I think I've done pretty good job.
I'd say so.
And like you, I think games are a full-time thing, and we've done it outside of the traditional system
pipeline
that everyone's told you have to work in, or that it turns out that actually doing this as a livelihood is working outside of that system, and all designers that try and work within it exploited. I don't know, we'll get into that.
Yeah, I've been really against getting myself published by other companies, because like it either has to be I've written a spec, I've thrown it at you, and then I want to have nothing to do with it after that point, and you're basically buying an idea from me, or I'm self-publishing something. And I feel like anyone that is doing this thing where they're working for the company and trying to build a product feels like they're working too hard for the time that they're compensated for. In my opinion, there's probably plenty of people that we know that have an easy go at it. But I haven't been in that scenario where I've had an easy go at it.
Yeah. I mean, I've been working with with Martin Wallace lately, who did like
Mhm.
Discworld and just funded
Big name drop.
something like $250,000 for his next
Yeah.
thing, Bloodstones.
He's probably the
So,
most well-known Southern
um,
Hemisphere designer. Just casually name drop Martin Wallace.
yeah, well, he's living in Brisbane, just having to meet through a variety of things. But yeah, where it's interesting getting his perspective because he's been working in the industry for like 30 years, and being published. But he actually started out sort of like we did, which is where you are in your bedroom, like packing your own board games and shrink wrapping them with a hairdryer and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But and kept doing stuff that way
Working
until
for clout, not for coin.
he was successful enough to be so or got to the point where he didn't need a publisher, and so it was like easier to
Yeah.
The big issue that I currently see, I guess, is that and you'll remember this when we went to PAX for the Tabletop Game Designers Association thing before the
DevCon.
convention,
Yeah.
DevCon, yeah, like I did these calculations a while ago, and it was like from a $60 game, maybe we can get like a fancy graphic or something. A $60 game, if you're the designer getting published and it's going through the usual process, it's going to go designer, publisher, distributor, retailer, and then customer. And for an RRP, the retailers are not, at least in Australia, it's even worse in America. It'll be like 30% of the RRP. They don't want to pay more, so it's about $40 per copy.
Yeah.
Distributors are going to sell to them at like $20 per copy, so that's 2/3 that are gone. And then a publisher, so a $60 game might cost you maybe $10 to manufacture. So a publisher will do a deal with you for 10, if you're lucky, to 10% profit. But they'll claim that the cost of manufacture is $10 of the $20 that they sell it to a distributor for. So then out of $10, you get 10%. So you get $1.
$1.
$60.
$1 per unit.
Yeah.
So if you sell 1,000 units, you get $1,000.
That's right. And so if you're like in that system, and at DevCon, I remember one of the industry people from a distributor got up and put. I was astonished, like pretty much the exact same thing. It was just from $100 game, it's going to be chunk, and sales and promos and stuff, and you were getting like $250. So
yeah,
I was like, and they asked out of the room, out of 100 people that were there that had awesome prototypes, that were working really hard, that were networking, that were doing everything, that had gotten tables, back conventions, convincing people that games are cool. There were like 3 of us.
Yeah.
That put up our hands that we're full-time gamers.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to bring up, and that is something I want to circle back to. But before we get too far away, that $1 thing, for some perspective, like saying $1,000 is a lot of money. Like you go, yeah, and this thing will make $1,000. You're like, hell yeah, just for this thing I scribbled on a paper and sent to a publisher. But to make minimum wage, you would have to sell 16,000 copies of a game in a year. Like to make the dole, which is poverty, like line, right?
Yeah.
And my game, Castles of Calera, which is like 6 years old now, is at 800 copies sold. So you'd be looking at at 8 years worth of waiting for the doll to come in for 1 year, right? So you would have to have 7 games running at the same time, selling at maximum, right? To get even close with some of these things. So to become a career designer under that model, you would need to have more than 20 games on shelves at Big W or something fucking ridiculous. And if you go to Big W, you'll see there's like three things that are got named people on it, which is like Carcassonne, and there's actually some Next Move games when I was in there last, and some other new, more hobby stuff. But like, unless if you made Monopoly, you don't exist, kind of a thing, right? Yeah. But coming back to that,
if you are doing a self-publishing thing, going directly to the retail customers, you're getting $40 of revenue per copy. And even if you have $10 of cost, that's $30 of profit. And I think that that's pretty reasonable to be able to build a self-sustaining career up. And
because that's what I'm doing it now.
Yeah, and that's what I'm doing. And people are like, no, it's not possible. And I'm like, but who told you it's not possible?
Yeah.
And the people that tell you it's not possible are the people that are either already benefiting from that system, or benefiting, or they're people that are maintaining it that way because they end up with getting
their profit margin.
60% of the value of something.
Yeah.
They're doing what amount to like crowdfunding or funding, arranging funding, and the packing games into boxes and mailing them out. Which if you're trying to do 1,000 different products, sure, that's hard. But if you're trying to do 2 to 3 different products, that's not hard.
Yeah.
And that information is not being shared with anyone. It's being deliberately obfuscated. So anyway. Yeah.
So I want to come back to that scene in DevCon, right? So DevCon is pretty much the entire Australian board games industry gathered in one place, with the exception of Sean Fenimore, who I'm convinced is still 50% of us. But there's about, I think they said there was 80 people in this room, and at one point we were all asked to put our hand up if we were doing this full time, like if game design was our main source of income, our job or whatever, right? And there was about 4 of us. Now, some of the people in this room that you would think would be the people to put their hand up, right? So we've got Steve D, who is retired. He receives a pension, but he also has like a successful dog walking business or training or something that he does on the side. So like, even though he's living the grind set, he's not making enough money between that and a pension to be able to do this full time, right? And then the only other person that wasn't you or me to put their hand up was Kim Brebank, who runs Good Games Publishing, right? But then there's a few people around, like we had 5 or 6 people from Launch Tabletop, who all do like graphics design full time, was 2 of them. And then we have the people that run all the logistics stuff out of the warehouse that does the manufacturing, that set up a bunch of stuff for DevCon to show off. And none of them put their hand up. And then we've got people that have been like serially running Kickstarters, and I've known them as to be selling stock all this time, and they don't do it full time. And it's like, how is this entire industry in our country hobbyists? Like all of us, how are we all hobbyists? And how am I somehow getting by doing this?
All the people that are creating the game ideas and doing all the hard work to get them to the point where a publisher would just be like, cool, it's 9% done, I'll take it, great. Like,
yeah.
Like it and stuff like that. Are hobbyists. But there's actually, it's a $1.5 billion industry in Australia. Yeah. It's 10% of the global market. It's not the designers that are sharing in that $1.5 billion. Like, it's,
Yeah.
And people say it's too hard to do stuff in Australia. The thing that really upset me was that when that number of us put up our hands, a number of people in the room who aren't employed full-time in this industry, but not the creative side, just in the, the hardware side of it, laughed. And they were like, oh, like, look at all these delusional people who are, have paid to come here, who have manufactured products like samples, who are doing the hard yards in the grind set. Like,
yeah.
I think that it's laughing at a problem that needs to be solved, because we know that it's possible to do this full time, and it shouldn't just be based on luck. Because, like, for me, like, Trust Me, My Doctor raised like 60,000, which is really good. But since it's, I haven't had really more than 10 to 16,000 for a good Kickstarter. Most of them are sort of 6 to 7. So
yeah,
which is, that's really good. But I think it's a hobby unless you have a massive unexpected hit.
Yeah,
is not a good way to. I just think it's awful that that's just seen as that's how it is.
Yeah. And the other thing is that a lot of the info that you need to be able to do it is freely available. And there is a lot of people that like literally do soft consulting, where they'll be like, hey, yeah, come, we'll talk about it, we'll get you ready to go and do this thing, and we'll help you walk along that indie publisher pipeline. Like, there's a lot of Americans that will talk about that kind of stuff, and there's a lot of incubator groups on Facebook where people just like ask, we'll help you, we understand it's shit. Like, and we want you to
I think
exist.
there's a cap where some person will be like, "Oh yeah, here's how to do it," but like, there's no point unless you can print 1,000. And someone who is looking at doing that is like, okay, well,
Yeah.
So
which is crazy because 1,000 is like the benchmark, and that's considered low, like really low.
Well, it doesn't need to be. Yeah, is what I really want to get into is like, you don't to operate in this way where it's like you have to do it dirt cheap and at massive scale, and you just can't do that as an individual, and that's not true. And I hate that is just repeated over and over and over again by people who benefit from designers believing. So, yeah, I don't know if we expected to really talk about all of that.
I think it's fine. I mean, it falls under industry tea, right? We like literally spelled that out in the intro that was 1/3 of the... This is the gripes. This is the Girlboss gripe set.
Yeah, that's right. I like to do gripes and solutions.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Because that's kind of what I wanted out of this space. I wanted us to be able to freely talk about stuff that's happening in the industry, freely talk about stuff that is how we participate in the industry, how other people can participate in the industry. Because we meet people all the time that do what we do and don't know we exist. At PAX, for example, in that section that I was in, there's like a long row of tables of people that applied to be in this showcase, right? And what I did PAX the previous time was the TGDA's special incubator thing. And that was just all like a bunch of random tables, and you would have your thing set up in a table somewhere and you're invisible. Where I was, there's this giant banner with my face on it. There's like fucking flashing lights and shit like that everywhere, right? And I'm walking along talking to these people.
Stand.
Yeah. I'm talking to these people. I'm meeting them for the first time. And I'm like, hey, this is cool. I've never seen you before. What are you doing? What's your game? And they're like, oh, I started designing games during the pandemic. I'm like, that's sick. How did you get into PAX? They're like, oh, I've known PAX about it, but I've never heard of the TGDA before or whatever. And I'm like, how? They represent you. How are you, So coming in and talking to these people about all these kind of things and meeting all these new designers, they don't know that we exist. And surely there's 1,000 other people that have made a prototype at home and they go, this would be really cool. I thought this was really good. Me and my friends enjoy playing this. What's the next step? What am I supposed to do here? And I think in their head, the average person thinks a publisher. They're waiting for a publisher to swoop in and be like, this is cool. In the same way that a record label discovers a band or whatever. But that you don't need that anymore.
I think that's the only way.
Yeah.
I think it's entirely possible nowadays with crowdfunding and stuff like that to make and fund the game to manufactured and distributed, and to not have that be bank breaking for you, and to then go and sell directly to board game retailers, and to gradually over time scale up your to reduce the cost per game, to increase the number of places that are regularly selling your game, to have games to have regular revenue and income, and then to gradually increase the number of days per week that you can do this. And yeah, I'm just sick of people saying it's impossible, because it's not. And
it's just networking, surely, getting connected with your manufacturer rep, getting connected with, because I do a lot of distribution myself. I will fucking catch the train all the way out to Parramatta and hand them copies of my game myself. But this is also because I've known the people that run the stores for 15, 16 years or whatever, since I've been, cringe admission, playing Magic the Gathering my entire life. And then just nurturing that relationship, having that contact. Anyone can do that. Right now, on Arena, I'm playing with it's this new bird that they released for historic mode that shuffles the power 9 into your deck. So I just play this absolutely degeneracy thing where I take infinite turns with Time Walk. It's just wait for my opponent to hate themselves.
Villages, and I would just be like, I am a giant communist nation, and I'm just gonna pump out action eternally.
Yeah.
I don't have like 10 actions at the end of mine, just placing 100 villages and drawing new cards. So,
Yeah.
what's on the agenda for today? What do you want
Um.
to?
So, in my head,
Yep.
originally, I wanted to kind of do an introduction. I want people watching this first episode to kind of get an idea of what the grind set is. So maybe we should do like a, hey, this is actually what the Girlboss Grindset is.
All right.
Now that people have a bit of an idea of how much of a sook I am, they could probably get an idea what the podcast is supposed to be. And then after that, I wanted to talk a bit about Truthseekers, your current Kickstarter crowdfunding campaign. Because it's hot, it's happening, and I want to talk about it. Because I think it in itself is an interesting concept. But I want to come back to that because I want to talk about what is the Girlboss Grindset? Really? I mean, it's just a meme I've been saying for a long time, right? But I think
this will be like an ideation session.
Yeah, I mean, to be independent in this industry is a lot of hours worked. My main problem right now is that my peak work hours is between 3 a.m. and 6 a.m. because that is when my graphics designer will message me because he's based in the US. So that's why I'm so tired right now. My eyelids are only like half open.
Yes.
And so I just am on call 24/7. I have my phone under my pillow so that when it vibrates with a message, I wake up and do work stuff. And I work like fucking 19 hours a day or whatever most of the time. I think with the amount of projects that I have going on, pretty much almost my entire day is billable hours every day. Like it's very rarely that I just have written off time, which is fine. Obviously, I volunteer for that. But to me, that's what the Girlboss Grindset is. Like I'm busy Yas Queen Slay every day so that I can live my independent lifestyle of just making games and doing art for a living. Which is kind of crazy, right? Like fix my thing.
Yeah.
I imagine it's something similar for you as well.
Well, my sort of Girlboss Grindset is more so that I don't know. I think I'm at the other end of the spectrum there. Like, I think that for me, it's about working very hard and relentlessly, even if people are saying, like, you can't do that. A, to prove them wrong, but B, because, like, what I ultimately want is just this creative job to be a stable, regular job. I do 5 days a week. I do around 8 hours a day. And that's, I think for me, it sort of means like discipline but finding ways to, because it's very easy to explode out. You know, I've done times where I'm working 12 hours a day and that's not been great for, relationships, and I'm a parent and
burnout.
I'm trying to do other things and there's burnout. Yeah. So, my grind set is what I'm grinding towards, I suppose, is the goal of it being a 40-hour a week thing that I love and that I can do that supports other people to have jobs in like creative jobs and to be able to learn how to do it themselves. Which I think is like fair enough.
Yeah, because I think the dream that a lot of the people in
the style that you do.
Yeah.
If I was able to, do massive hours anymore, I don't know where I would be, but yeah, I'm sort of in this like happy-ish space where semi-reliably, it's just like a regular career.
But that's good, right? Because I think me and a lot of other people are chasing this dream of you build your portfolio to a place where you are just reprinting stuff and collecting money. Like in theory, you get fucking Alan Cheshire one day put this shitty idea into my head, whereas you make one game that's an evergreen that you can just print over and over and over again and sell that one thing forever. And then you're kind of fine. It's like the Carcassonne or the Settlers of Catan or whatever. But like, or Cards Against Humanity and you retire.
Actually, I think that that would be awesome, but you have to be super lucky or super well connected. And I think that if you actually build up a catalog of, over, over 5 years or something, 10, 12 games that might not be smash hits, but like they are great and people love them and they sell really well across a broad set of things, I think that that's probably the better way to do it. And your chances of having skyrocket if you're doing the process over and over again.
Yeah.
You're sustaining yourself to the point where you can just make a lot of, that pace.
Yeah, but I also think that
the
evergreen dream is impossible without the money behind it. Right? Like, unless if you have that $1 billion marketing campaign, it won't happen. Like, or just a viral meme or whatever, right? Yeah.
Yeah. So like from my perspective, there's like 5 stages. There's like the development, there's manufacturing, crowdfunding, distribution, and ongoing sales and promotion. And I think there's ways to combine and hack each of those parts so that a lot of the like waste and reliance on other people is like eliminated. And then so I don't know if you've encountered like selling to the US versus selling in Australia, but in the US, every single step of that is like it takes 30 days for the money to get from this point to you. So the customers will pay the retailers, but the retailers won't send the money through to the distributor for 30 days. Okay, and the distributors won't send it through for 30 days to the publisher, and then the publisher won't send it for 30 days to you, and they're all taking a cut out of each of those things. So if you can like take out a big chunk of that and you're selling directly to like retailers or customers, then you're sort of getting a lot faster. But the costs from the other end, so that's revenue, but the costs are all like straight away. Yeah. So, but if you have, I think there are ways to print to demand and to sort of start to estimate. Like once you have regular demand for something, you go, okay, well, over the next 6 months, I'm going to sell 600 copies of this thing. So, I can do that print, and then the cost stays level, whereas the revenue is higher, or gradually builds over time. Well, I mean that's what I've done. Eventually, you can get to a point where if you're printing enough stuff, then the cost to manufacture it is actually, you don't have to pay the manufacturer for 30 days. And so then, and that, like, if you can get those to overlap to the point where you have enough orders and money is coming, and that money will arrive before the manufacturing bill is due, then you don't need billions of dollars because the orders have paid for themselves.
Yeah, in the same way that Kickstarter works, where they pre-order things.
That's right. So I have an arrangement on a 30-day account. So my aim is to near the end of the campaign, I'll contact retailers and be like, hey, like this game sold, like I'm literally doing the print run this week, like what do you want? And then how many sales I get, I'll print a little bit in excess of that, but the money will come in and the payment will be, roughly around the same. And I can communicate with all of those people and just be like, hey, like this is the situation I'm in. Is it cool if this is an extra week? Is it cool if this is an extra week sooner? And just like figure it out. I think those skills are not, once you have the information and the relationships, that's what I'm trying to do through Guildmaster as well, is allow us to access and rely on each other's resources and connections and knowledge to make a lot of these things possible without, just to take away all the reasons that you can't do something.
Yeah.
Which is started
make it accessible.
Issues.
Yeah.
As game designers, we're used to solving issues like all day, every day in a whole bunch of different random ways, like mechanics, but also like how do you get people to playtest your game? Where do you get art from? Where do you do this? Where do you do that? And I think we can just extend that thinking and problem solving to the other steps of the process.
Yeah.
I think we're on a tangent there. We should have a tangent.
A little bit. I think that's fine. And I think that is a good introduction to something that we'll do a deeper dive into later. Because I know that we've got notes on our big note board about some of this stuff that I do really want to go through and do a big talk about later, because I think that is one of the more invisible parts of the job, where I think the average person's expectation of a game design career is they go, here's the game, and walk away. Whereas an indie designer, you go, here's the game, here's me learning how to do graphics design over 5 years and doing all the graphics design myself. Here's me doing all the marketing myself. Here's me doing community management, et cetera, and then just the 5,000 hats that you actually have to wear in order to do this. I think I could make about 12 different resumes for myself in like one specific role in this industry for the different skills that I've learned over time to do these things. And it just is because that's easier to do it in-house at my desk for a lot of these jobs, right? Like this game I'm working on right now is the very first time I've hired a graphics designer to work on a game. Now, if you've ever seen some of the games that I've made, for some of them, it's pretty fucking obvious I've done it all myself. But for this, coming in... Yeah, so this is Castles of Kalira, which is illustrated, and the other one is Winning Love by Daylight, which is also illustrated. But I've done the graphics design for both of these games. If you've seen the inside of Castles of Kalira, it's pretty dog shit. But Winning Love by Daylight's not bad.
Illustration and graphics. I think a lot of indie designers feel like they need to do it all at once, but you can actually commission key pieces and then you graphic design them. Just
that's true.
Place and try and make it look consistent. And save yourself so you don't need like thousands and thousands of dollars and stuff like that.
No. Well, Castles of Kalira was thousands and thousands of dollars.
I think my mental process for all of this, and just for the viewers, I have ADHD and I'm unmedicated today, and that's why I'm talking relentlessly. I think it's like Girlboss Grindset for me is a relentless approach to solving problems and overcoming barriers and circumventing systematic barriers that are too high. And I think that ties into the other stuff we're going to be talking about, such as like gender and identity. And, because I've been a trans woman, I suppose, my entire life, but I've been open about it for only about a year or so.
Yeah.
It's been really interesting interacting with these spaces from both perspectives, I suppose.
Well, yeah, before we run away from that too far, there was a moment at DevCon, because I know we've talked about DevCon a bit, but there was a moment at DevCon where you had your 30 seconds to get up and say something. And you were like, hey, I'm Hannah Ford Morgan. 15 minutes ago, you would have known me as Jack. And to get up in front of the 99% white male audience of people and say this must have been super nerve-wracking. Right?
I think I was actually really nervous to get up and not just be like, hi, my name's Hannah Ford Morgan, and I think the whole way that all of this is set up is bullshit.
Yeah, I want to do that all the time too. My problem is I'm like keeping in opinions about just flaming packs and like flaming GGP and shit like this all the time, because I respect these people and I enjoy spending a lot of time with them and I think they're really cool, but how they operate in this space doesn't benefit me directly and therefore I'm mad at them. It's like...
I think, I think there's ways that, but no, I think it was... Like I've been interacting in a lot of spaces, like my professional work up here in Brisbane, and like my personal life and professional and family and stuff like that. And I think that one good thing about the board game community is that I haven't like consciously seen any resistance or negativity about it. And I am, of course, though, or like in a very privileged space where I already established myself.
Yeah.
And I think displayed quite a lot of like non-gender specific like value and expertise and knowledge prior, and so at least in this space I'm not entering it new. I'm largely benefiting and will always from having established myself as a man, and like I'm so white and I'm
so white, same. It's a
and
shame,
being
really.
Is very different to being a woman. Space, because I think there's a lot of invisible privileges and sort of being biologically male with a female gender, I think there's a subconscious element to that for a lot of folks, possibly. But I mean, that's something that we can delve into, I guess.
Yes, that is something I want to do a whole episode on.
Yeah, I'd love to have people on and to just be like, hey, like, you're a woman in the games industry. What do you think? Have you noticed that there's a huge impact? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I kind of talked about,
But before we get too far into that, because
Yes.
I am really happy with it just being a little bit of a taste, because I know that is something I really want to talk about a lot more, maybe for the next episode.
Yeah.
I want to talk about your Kickstarter campaign that's going on.
Oh, yes, thank you.
So this is Truthseekers. This is a game that I actually got to play at DevCon. I was too busy during PAX to come over and have a play at it, but I did get to play it at DevCon, and now this is a conspiracy theory weaving game.
That's right, yeah. So you get, who's, hows, and whys, and you have to, essentially build this grid of truth, and you're all competing to get into the Illuminati. One of you is secretly Illuminati. These identity cards you secretly have at the start of each round. And, so you're all presenting and combining theories. You're building on... One of the differences since you played it is more of an emphasis on building on each other's, like
a yes and kind of thing?
Exactly, yeah. It's yes and the game, but it's like, but how and why?
Yeah.
So, you can end up with one person will put down that, the British royalty is stealing blood to resurrect Nazis or something. And someone will be like, okay, yeah, well, that makes sense. But you're you're correct, but you're missing the entire main point, is that Nazis actually have a secret moon base. And the reason they have a secret moon base is because the US government has been infiltrated by lizard people. And, and it was interesting developing and also playing it. Because I remember there was a moment at PAX where I was like 3 games in, and we're still figuring out the core mechanics. And I felt my brain folding in on itself. Because the kind of leaps that you need to make to tie in, lizard people and the milk industry or something.
Yeah.
It's such a stretching of your brain.
Yeah.
But, like, I was making the game because I got really interested in conspiracies and why people would believe a lot of them. And the thing is, like, enough are actually true, and enough actual conspiracies existed that you can really spin it all together.
Enough time passes and the FBI is actually like, yeah, that's true. You got me. We did those things.
Well, with the CIA, like, there's some stuff with, like, JFK and all this kind of... But I think the key thing that I discovered was, and the key, like, fun of the game is, like, the dopamine hit you get. Not only from being like, okay, here's a ridiculous way that this links. Which is a lot easier than a lot of people think. Like, I had down who were like, I'm just not creative and I can't do this. And then they were, like, the best.
Yeah.
But the dopamine hit of making that connection yourself and being like, cool, haha, like the debate game. But then also this, like, shared thing you end up with between each other.
Well, because a lot of these are things that are relatively existing already in the cultural conscious, or you've heard about, or like someone's like, oh yeah, flat earthers or whatever, and then you already have some kind of exposure to or understanding of a lot of these concepts, but your original exposure to it is like, oh, this is bullshit, or what, that makes no sense, or yeah, sure, Bigfoot's real, whatever. And then
trying to make it make sense.
And now you're trying to explain Bigfoot or whatever. You're writing an episode of the X-Files live in real time with your friends.
Absolutely.
Which is what I really enjoyed about it. And the game that we played was really silly because we had some stuff that was like, because we were trying to tie everything back together. We were trying to like have the most things in a row that made sense together. And we were like trying to tie everything back to this core one that we had, which everything is a simulation run by lizard people or something. And it was like farmers are putting microphones in pigeons or something. And they're like, oh shit, but how do I make this? Why would they do that if we're in a simulation? They could just simulate it and all this kind of stuff. And you're trying to justify these wacky things that you can do. Or the shortening legroom in the airplane and all this kind of stuff. So like the core concepts of it are very, very funny. And I feel like this game will get compared to stuff like Cards Against Humanity, right? Where Cards Against Humanity is like, here's a funny question and here's a funny answer. Because I think that game is really just offensive for no reason. And what this does differently is it goes, here is a concept, and the concept itself doesn't necessarily lean towards saying this has to be true or this has to be false. So this is just a thing that we know is something that someone has presented as fact at some point. And then you have to now try and convince us why this is or isn't. Because some of them are like disproving this thing for this other reason and stuff as well. So it's more like having a conversation about the concept rather than two midgets shitting into a bucket.
Yeah, well, I'm glad you.
Which I don't really understand why.
Committee as well. I think that's fun actually. It's have like backing up the stuff that you're presenting, however silly it is.
Yeah.
I love games that like you can be surprised by what people come up with.
Yeah, it's more like Super Fight. I think it's Super Fight, where it's like, here's two things, and you have to convince me why your thing would beat mine in a fight. I'm pretty sure that's how it goes.
Yeah. And I think Truthseekers is good as well because I'm doing it like the target was $666.
Yeah. I think the whole campaign page itself is a meme. And I think that in itself has its own attractive quality. And I think it's like a marketing asset, right? Kickstarter itself is already a marketing asset, but the campaign that you've created is engaging with the audience in a unique way by being funny and satirizing basically what is the platform. And I think that is really clever.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm doing the updates in code, and like it was a bit of a gamble because I was like, I hope someone like picks it up and like starts wanting to translate them and stuff like that, and just has fun with it with me. And one person did, and they wrote a comment back in the same cipher, and I was like, oh my god, this is it.
That's great.
And somebody messaged was like, hey, I think you should put like regular English ones in there. And I was like, I don't know what to actually like that person that responded and was like, here's my thing in the same cipher. Type back, and it was fun. Like that's the person I'm talking to, really. And
that's your market. The people that that really want to get immersed in this experience.
Yeah, and we'll see if that translates to a lot more backers. But again, so like I designed this campaign and like the back end financially so that if it funds like under $1,000 or something, like that's okay. I'll just start local and print almost on demand.
Yeah.
And go straight to retailers and customers and actually make a decent margin on it.
Yeah.
But if it takes off, then it can do like an overseas manufacturing option and something like that. And then that's where this particular product can become a bigger part of the revenue stream.
Because I think it'll do really well in the States, honestly.
I hope, we'll see.
I think conspiracy theories are much more prevalent. Actually, there's a heat map of UFO sightings globally, and it's 99.8% in the US and 0.1% in the UK.
Okay, maybe I should do a bit
By that alone, makes me think that this particular product will pop off in the United States more than it will in Australia.
I just want to get to a point where I can just, even as a launch pad, like it's funded, so I will be able to make a few dozen copies at the very least. But to start sending them overseas and try and, if there's like a board game store near Area 51, just be like, hello.
Or Roswell or something, yeah.
I think there's gonna be a tricky thing where like people that genuinely believe in conspiracy, I don't know if they're necessarily the target market because the game is a bit of a
hang on. So the conspiracy theory enjoyer will think some of them are bullshit and some of them are super real. Right? And then their experience of the game is going to be a more expert opinion version of the ones that they think are real, and then a more expert rebuttal on the things that they think are fake. So that when they see the stuff that they go, oh yeah, obviously that's fake, it's going to be more fun for them to engage and disassemble that.
Yeah.
But then when they're like, Bigfoot is actually a dude, or whatever, and they're going to go, oh, well, actually, here's all the stuff I know about Bigfoot, which is a fact.
Yeah, and the lizard people actually just FBI dressed up as lizard people, dressed up as Bigfoot.
Yeah.
Those lizard people.
Exactly.
That was my favorite part of that game.
Yeah, there was a lot of... It's like, hang on, but they were already lizard people dressed up as people dressed up as lizard people. But then also they're doing other stuff with other lizard. They're just like lizard people showed up a lot. Like
Yeah.
a lot.
I've actually been thinking, and maybe you can give me your opinion on this, Keith, is I was thinking of, so I watched this guy called Moist Critical.
Yeah, I am aware of him.
And he did this just a random episode listening while driving, and it was, they were talking about conspiracies and stuff, and he had he was starting to really get into it, and was like, had that kind of breathless, like, and then the government is like, blah, 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 and he was like parodying it, but I was like, yeah, this is like exactly the kind of
the way he presents the mythos around himself is like really on brand for that too.
Yeah, I was thinking of commenting and being like, "Look, it seems like a little conspiracies. I've made a game like a."
Send him a message on Twitter.
Could I?
Just send a message on Twitter. Be like, "Hey, Moisty, look, big fan. I want you to play this board game. I think you'd really get into it."
Think about the idea that Elon Musk is deliberately tanking Twitter for some reason.
I have my own specific opinions on Twitter. I don't think he's trying to tank it. I think he's just trying to make it incredibly right wing, which to all of us lefties is tanking it. So
So here's a conspiracy that I came up with myself, but I'm like, it would make sense. What if? Okay, you know how in professional wrestling, all right, everyone looks heel, like the bad guy, and it helps everyone get on board with the rest of the story and get really passionate. What if Putin is actually like behind the scenes? They're all working together. Think about this. And
he's just playing a heel to like, but then who's the hero?
Trying to strengthen NATO by being a bad guy.
Yeah.
And, like attacking all these random places, and every time he does...
He's trying to set up Trump to be the hero to come back.
Try again. This one's NATO this time. And, outlier countries like Finland and Sweden and, like, all these other places are like, oh, fuck, we better join NATO now. And what if NATO is just like, yes, come to us.
NATO's turning into the worldwide government for the united future.
Personally, I want to ask you, how many conspiracies do you believe in? I personally believe that there is a business cabal. And there's also a, like, governmental, at the very least, they all were in the same, like, secret societies at, like, Stanford or, because those exist. Like, Skull and Bones is an actual thing. It's either at Harvard or somewhere else. But, yeah, like, a whole bunch of 12 presidents were part of it. Future presidents, like, all these business people, these, like, I think that kind of stuff happens a lot. And I don't think that it would be unreasonable for a supervillain world power to be doing stuff. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but is overall, Yeah.
I think a lot of that is networking, right? Like, in the same way that our personal business grows and changes by the people that we meet, right?
Yeah.
And the opportunities that we have available to us by the people that we meet. People that have billions and billions and billions of dollars have access to everyone on the planet, right?
Yeah.
And everyone on the planet knows who they are by virtue of having billions of dollars. So when all those people are aware of each other, because they all sit at the same table, it's not really a secret society. It's just they all just happen to be in the same industry of being evil billionaires.
Just a society.
And when they go to each other, they go, hey, isn't this thing a bit shit, how all the poor people want money? Then they'll work together and solve problems that they have.
Yeah.
It's really not secret, in my opinion.
It as well, really. Like G20 is sort of all the world leaders getting together and talking about stuff and dictating how they're all going to run the world from that point on.
I don't think it's secret at all. I just think that it's romanticized to be a secret society based on like kind of this like the vampire mythos of we have to live in the shadows, but we're actually secretly powerful because we're really old and have all this money. When it's just really a direct allegory to you don't know what's going on, but it's not secret. It is just there, and we know all their names. Like we know who these people are. It's not secret.
It's like evil intent, like.
I think evil is just someone that has an opinion that is not for the benefit of others. And for the people that have billions of dollars, an evil opinion is one without empathy and is one that is of selfishness, which is like a prerequisite for having $1 billion. You don't get $1 billion by being nice to people.
Yeah.
Like, so to me, anyone with $1 billion is a villain mastermind that is hell bent on destruction of the entire planet, because they could have fixed the planet by now and haven't.
Okay.
Right? Like, well, they go to Elon Musk. They go, "You could solve world hunger for this price tag." And he goes, "Yeah, no, actually, I'll buy Twitter."
They actually buy a social media platform for like 10
times the amount. And you're like, well, okay, clearly that was all PR, and you had no interest in actually helping other people.
I do wonder though, is that like for 1 year? It would cost,
the price tag. In theory, it would be building up a system to make sure that it is fixed.
Yeah, so I think that's the big crux of it for me, is like, would it actually help? Because like the way that you do it is important. So the US military gets like $500 billion a year or something. And I mean, that's a lot of money, but it's not, it's got a very definite aim. It's like, I don't know, yeah. Well, I'm interested to talk about this kind of stuff. We can do it through the lens of game design as well. I want to make a game called Billionaires Race to Mars, where you're essentially playing the bold one, the English knight.
I think it would actually be interesting for us to talk about a lot of stuff, like a lot of topics that we want to cover, but in the lens of making a game from it.
Yeah.
Or like, turning it into a mechanic, or turning it into something that can be board gamey or whatever. So I think that would be really interesting. And I think there is a lot, like, there's a to-do list that is an RPG game, where it's like whenever you complete a task, you get XP. And like, I'm sure that there's lots of gamified type things in that category that it works along the same way. I've always been super interested in that kind of stuff, because I watch a lot of content creators. Like that's how I know about the most critical. I watch a lot of Twitch streamers, content on YouTube, and every single time they're like, "Hey, today this is what we're doing," and we're playing Jenga. I'm like, and or Cutie Cinderella did this big murder mystery event, and they're like, "Hey, here's what the rules are," and they go, "Ooh, I don't know if that really works. Maybe these are the rules," and you're like, "Okay." You're making an attempt here to build something, but like, I also want to be there to be like, hey, here's a game I've designed that is literally this, because like the game I'm working on at the moment is a murder mystery thing at the exact same time period, and it's like, here's a fucking thing that I made. I built this, like, and then have those people playing these games made by game designers. It's the fucking job that I do. You're an internet personality. Let me do the heavy lifting. You just play the thing and make the jokes, like. You know what I mean?
I'm thinking, chat about all this, and because we're new to sort of the idea of speaking to a large audience, like, if I could speak directly to people that are maybe watching, like,
most critical. If you're watching, get in my DMs. You're a sexy, sexy man.
Yeah, we've got a game. Like, what kind of stuff do you want to hear about? Like, what sounded good? What could we do better?
Yeah. We should start creating conspiracy theories about the Australian board game industry. That should be our next step.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. Well, I don't know how much time it's been, but I think this
53 minutes 44. So I think we can actually wrap on this.
Yeah, I think that's really good.
Call that out first. I'm pretty happy with how this has gone so far. Welcome to the Girlboss Grindset. It's not really well structured yet. We're still figuring it out, but this is our introduction.
Grindset.
Yeah.
Pick a target.
We got to get better at time management, because that would be a key thing to the Grindset itself.
Yeah, but it's like the fourth week that we tried to.
I know. Our third attempt at recording our first episode.
Yeah, here's to many more.
Here's to many more. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that like and subscribe button. All these will be sorted into a playlist, so that if you're watching this the first episode, you should be able to find any subsequent episodes on here. And soon you'll be able to find premium episodes on, it's the Guildmasters Patreon, is that right?
That's right. So right now it's just Hannah Ford Morgan, patreon.com.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to figure out a way to,
to do all that. We'll have all these links in the description, so you can check them out. And we hope to catch you next time on the Girlboss Grindset.
See you later.